Now do you believe me about why I retired?
Not entirely, but tonight I'm glad you didn't stay retired.
A hero defined by his villains. Batman has one of the greatest rogues galleries in fiction, but you know who has a highly underrated list of antagonists? Batman Beyond. The show continually introduces new villains, new concepts, and new power sets to the world of Neo Gotham. However, it's actually how the show utilized villains and developed them over the course of the show that has cemented its longevity.
What the heck was that?
A new technique, Batman. Did you think I'd learned nothing from our previous encounters?
When development began for Batman Beyond, DCAU head honchos Bruce Timm had a single edict. This would be Terry's show. Bruce had his moment in the spotlight. He was Batman. Terry is Batman. And as such, he needed a rogues gallery of fitting ne'er-do-wells. Characters that had either a personal connection to the protagonist or characters that would push Terry in ways that he could never have imagined. While some of the initial villains Terry goes up against are fairly forgettable, it's when the show starts to bring characters back over and over again that it really finds its stride.
Batman saved us and the animals.
Yeah, the guy's incredible. A real hero.
What I want is to change all that.
Initially, the show zeroes in on developing Derek Powers, aka Blight, as the central villain of Terry's world. A dastardly businessman who becomes irradiated and develops energy projection abilities. He's snide, scheming, and dastardly. However, he's really just poor man's Lex Luthor for the majority of his appearances. Despite being in almost all the initial 13 episodes of Season 1, Blight's big bad position was abandoned fairly quickly.
Now I suggest you leave. It's not healthy to be around me when I'm shedding.
The show pivoted into forming an overarching narrative about Terry struggling to maintain the balance of his secret identity, real-world responsibilities, and the ever-present call of justice. Characters like Shriek, Spellbinder, and Inque were developed and built out in ways that were atypical for a weekday animated show aimed at kids. They were either given more sympathetic and complex character backdrops, or they were moved in darker and more homicidal directions. Episode 3 of the series, titled Blackout, sees the introduction of the aforementioned Inque, a freelance criminal for hire, in the mold of Catwoman. She has the ability to turn her body into a black, ink-like liquid. She almost instantly developed a cult following of fans. In her first appearance, she's a cold-hearted assassin and thief for hire.
I'll pay you whatever you want.
No wonder I like working for you.
However, as the show progresses, she's built out even further. Disappearing Inque showcases just how destabilized the character has gotten from her first encounter with Batman. She's forced to accept assistance from a lovesick fan who wants to gain powers like hers. In both her first two appearances, we see that she's someone with a dark side, a manipulative side, and a keen brilliance. There aren't many villains that can say they figured out how to sneak into the Batcave, and Inque does it on her first run-in with Batman, and then goes head-to-head with both Terry and Bruce and nearly beats them. However, it's Inque's third appearance that gives her true depth. In Inkling, we learn that she has a daughter that she was forced to put up for adoption as a baby, and that all her corporate espionage was done in the name of making money to secretly send to her estranged offspring. This tragic backstory pulls the character back from being a heinous monster fueled by greed and repositions her as a single mother who's willing to do just about anything to support a child who will never know her name.
They told me my trust fund was an inheritance. I never thought I was living on stolen money.
But Inque isn't the only character that sees significant growth over the course of the show. The Beyond baddie Walter Shreve, aka Shriek, is equally as compelling. Shriek was hired by Derek Powers to track down Bruce Wayne and push him to the breaking point, in an attempt to get Wayne to give up his shares of Wayne Powers. His sound-based powers proved to be both visually arresting and narratively compelling over the course of the show. It's pretty hard to take the concept of a sound engineer who becomes a supervillain and make it cool, but the Beyond team pushed his character to impressive heights, and in a quintessentially comics twist, in the finale of his debut episode, he suffers an accident and becomes deaf.
Get up.
No.
Shriek is one of the few villains that seems intelligent enough to really put Terry's Batman between a rock and a hard place. In Babel, episode 12 of season 2, he constructs a nearly unwinnable scenario for Terry where he uses a piece of technology that prevents everyone from understanding each other, thus spawning mass chaos across Neo Gotham.
That suit of his was pretty powerful, but I don't see how it could have affected that much of the city.
Maybe he found some way to Pradish Dash Pergrana.
What? You're not making Urs know.
He says that the only way he will return things to normal is if Terry hands himself over. This episode revolves around Terry having to make a choice that could potentially set a dangerous precedent and discredit the legacy of Batman forever. And it's only through Shriek's brilliance as a villain that this plot is facilitated.
This isn't how I wanted it. You were supposed to give yourself up to me.
You should have gotten it in writing.
Funny. See how funny you think this is?
First appearing in the 10th episode of Season 1, Spellbound, Ira Billings, aka Spellbinder, is a psychologist at Terry's high school who feels as though he's not remunerated properly for his efforts and thus takes to a life of crime. Utilizing hallucinogenic pieces of technology that he's developed, he starts stalking kids in the school and forcing them to hand over valuable items, under the duress of nightmarish dream states. In his debut appearance, it's instantly apparent that Spellbinder is a favorite of the creative staff. The episode feels like a cut above the rest. The psychedelic visuals of Spellbinder's powers, the eerie dream sequences, and even just his costume design make the character instantly recognizable.
I don't get you, Doctor. You're supposed to be helping kids.
You want to be my therapist? Then here, get to know me.
In the 8th episode of Season 2, Hooked Up, he develops virtual reality technology that is highly addictive. He uses it to conscript children from the local high school to steal for him in order to continue using the machines. Spellbinder is an important player in the broader Batman Beyond universe because his stories always deal with the subconscious desires of both Bruce and Terry. However, in this episode, it's Max, Terry's best friend and confidant, that gets the most development. Her time in Spellbinder's machines showcases to the audience that she has a fractured home life and that all she wants is for her parents to love each other. And to push things even further, in Season 2, Episode 14, Eyewitness, we see Spellbinder manufacturing a scenario where multiple eyewitnesses believe that Batman killed an opponent in cold blood. Sure, everyone knew that the original Batman would never kill anyone, but Spellbinder exploits the fact that this new Batman is relatively untested and hasn't fully secured his place in the minds of Neo-Gothamites. Spellbinder is such a brilliant enemy that he's using Batman's shadowy folkloric persona against him.
You were so ready to believe the worst. It was easy.
Lock him up.
Bruce Timm's edict that Beyond was Terry's show held true. For the most part. Yes, okay, they had a few episodes where they brought back old baddies like Mr. Freeze or Ra's al Ghul, but those were the exceptions that proved just how much new territory they were covering. They chose to create and develop original villains as opposed to revisiting the classic characters from Bruce's villains roster. And it paid off. The show blazed new ground by sticking to a specific design remit and then digging in further and further into it. The villains in Batman Beyond are just as complex, intricate, and exciting as the classic Batman villains. They're the reason why the show succeeded. And well, that's all we have for this episode of Nerdstalgic. What do you think? Was there a Batman villain that we didn't talk about that deserves more of a spotlight? Mad Stan, the terrific trio. Let us know down in the comments below, and as always, please subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with everything we've got going on.